Hello, everyone. Hope you all have been having a great time so far. So our next session is on data strategy, which discusses how to use big data to engage the audience, create new products, and grow revenues. With us, we have Corinne Podger, digital journalism consultant and lecturer, and Troy Lankriet, group data and insights director, media, who is in Belgium. Ms. Podger is the director of the Digital Skills Agency, which provides training and consultancy to newsrooms globally in mobile journalism, social media, multimedia, and digital first strategy. She's a sessional journalism lecturer at the University of Melbourne and has guest lectured at universities in Australia, Europe, and the United States. Prior to moving into journalism training, she worked as a print, radio, online, social media, and television journalist for over 20 years, primarily for the Australian Broadcasting Corporation and the BBC World Service. I welcome Ms. Podger to join us, as well as to introduce our speaker, Ms. Troy Lankriet. Welcome, Ms. Podger.
Thank you so much, Shilpa. So I am delighted to introduce the first speaker in this special session on data strategy. As we heard there from Shilpa, Troy Lankriet is Group Data and Insights Director with Media House NV in Belgium. She's been with Media House for nearly 4 years, and she's been in the media sector for 20 years. More than half her career has been focused on data and insights roles at high-profile brands, including Sonoma Magazines and Kantar. Her focus at Media House has been on change and transition management, and in particular on a more data and consumer insights-driven organisation and culture, and the strategies to support this. So she is perfectly placed to deliver this session on using big data to engage audiences, create new products, and grow revenues. Troy, over to you.
Thank you. So I'm going to share my screen. Just shout when someone isn't seeing the screen. So hello, I'm indeed working for Media House over more than 4 years now, and I've been working in the inside. So I'm trying to change the culture, thinking about data points more towards insights, and then especially consumer insights. So the first thing that they asked me after a year I joined Media House was to build a data strategy. So my first answer was, well, as a publisher, I don't believe we need a data strategist. We are a publishing company, so we don't sell data. It's more that we need to have the strategy supported with the data, and that the data teams all work towards that same kind of strategy. And then a second thing that I mentioned, it's not about data, it's about insights. And as an example, I kind of start promoting that business people should less ask about data points. So how many churners do we have? How many clicks? What's the revenue? What's this? What's that? How many percentage? But they should be more courageous, and they should be able to ask their data and insights team to deliver insights and not just data numbers. I think with the COVID and the Corona, we have seen how numbers without any context, without any interpretation, can lead to a lot of confusion and miscommunication. So I'm kind of talking to business to ask more about, okay, how can we increase intention instead of just asking for churn figures? How can we increase in the B2B the customer effectiveness instead of just seeing how many client visits does my sales people have done? How can we automate all those insights? Because if you listen to the business, they kind of ask a lot of questions, a lot of reports on data, etc. So a lot of them are necessary. Still, data points can deliver insights on their own. So we should be able to automate that. And if we say we want to be more consumer centric, we should be able to deliver those consumer insights in an automatic way, in an agile way to everyone working within Media House. So that's also the way that we can make sure that everybody is consumer focused. So that's where I'm going to outline 3 kind of things. We've been doing a lot of projects and a lot of tracks. I'm going to outline 3 of them in this session. It's always short, so don't hesitate to ask me questions when you want me to go more in depth in some of the topics. So the first thing I did is to tell everyone that they should be using algorithms to deliver those insights. Uh, this is not something new, but sometimes, I don't know whether it's with your business as well, but with Media House, people were saying we are data driven because they looked at a lot of data and then they kind of let them intuition speak and say, okay, we think that this kind of data means that, so we're going to decide that. But the human mind is not able to capture all the data and to do all the interaction. That's something that an algorithm can do. And I just want to have an example out of the B2B sector. So we are working towards a B2B sales automation. And the idea is that, well, we've been selling advertising over years now, and we know that if you do a lot more contacts with clients, it's still a business people in a lot of away from the programmatic, of course. So if you have more visits, then the revenue goes up. But the advertising income is under pressure, so there are cut saving, less people, less sales support as well. This leads to less number of visits, and so the revenue keeps declining. And it's kind of a circle going on that sales can put less time in the visit preparation because he has to do other stuff. So he's doing a lot more stuff themselves also, so less visits and less effective sales, also a decline in revenue again. If we change the approach, we can actually say, okay, let's prepare the visits, for instance, automatically. A lot of data points are needed to make the visit more effective, but also let's kind of decide based on data and insights on which kind of client to visit when. So who needs to be visited at what moment, and by preference also what kind of story and what kind of proposal the next best offer, which you know from the B2C side, can we implement that also in the B2B. So it's not always going to be the data story, the data studio story. It could be also some kind of other story based on what we know about our customers. So that's just an example to show you that with an algorithm, you can take a lot more points into account than you can do when you consider just some data points and based on reports. But because, and in that way, we can actually integrate internal data, historical data, but also have some scraping of our biggest consumers, their data as well with the interaction, etc. I want to stress on that last element that we also are going to deliver the insights on what the algorithm is doing. So the B2B sales will have a dashboard saying you have to visit this client, but he also have the most important elements why he has to visit that client and which kind of story might be interesting and the reasons behind. So he doesn't go blind into that. And so the algorithms can get accepted as well by the business. They should be understandable. They shouldn't be a black box. A second item that we are going to do is less about big data, it's more about consumer insights. So we are starting to introduce survey-based insights again and combining them with behavioral data. And within the technology organization, we're actually going to use that data as well to prioritize our projects and also to decide which kind of project, which kind of features, which kind of products we need to deliver. And that's by injecting consumer insights, which we will capture throughout the customer journey into the process of the roadmap and into product development. For instance, when you say consumer insights, we also will capture consumer satisfaction based on the customer journey. We will also, for some touch points within the customer journey, ask about consumer effort score, like if you want to take a subscription, how difficult was it to take that subscription? Was it a one click, or did you need to take your time and keep your mind focused on it? The same with context with the customer service team. Did you get help? Was it good? What was the quality of the conversation? Was it quickly, etc.? So based on each touch point, we will ask for feedback Of course, we won't ask everybody the whole time, so we also need to plan that very carefully. And on top of that, we will actually have a common KPI for the whole organization based on a NPS kind of question. And then we will create those insights. We will have more general tool that can actually make sure that those insights are shared throughout the organization. And then in a third step, like I said, we will inject them in the way we develop products, but also in our roadmap. Already this year, we kind of put in a value consumer element for each project. We kind of ask, okay, how valuable is this for our end consumer? But this was still done based on gut feeling, based on some experience that everybody has. From 2021, we actually want to have that introduced, measured into the consumer life cycle, so we can make sure that this project is really going to solve an issue, a problem that a consumer have, or it really is going to fulfill a task that this consumer wants to fulfill with our consumers. This will be combined with how important is it for the organization. So the cost saving projects, for example, or the more efficient kind of projects will also be taken into account, and it will be combined with the effort. And those three elements will actually be the basis for our technology roadmap. How are we going to introduce it into the product and the features development? Well, we've already taken into account the consumer we kind of think about what is important for the consumer. We've done a lot of research, but it's all bits and pieces, not integrated. But people are trying to integrate the consumer voice already in the creation of new features, new platforms, etc., new communication styles. The way we've done that is we did a lot of workshop where we were talking about customer journeys and how people behave, etc. But was mainly talking to people, capturing insights from everywhere. It wasn't structurally injecting consumer insights in the project. Not always, sometimes it is. More and more, we are now actually listening to the consumer, starting to co-create with the consumer instead of looking at their digital behavior and kind of thinking about what does it mean, why are they behaving like this, and create stories. We kind of actually ask the consumers why they behave, what they want to realize by using our products. So that's more from the more data-driven kind of side to more insights-driven way. So that's the story I keep telling within Media House. We need to get off of more data and thinking about the consumer and more asking what he's actually doing and analyzing this more profoundly. So of course we use the UX approach during the designs. We have an agile way of working, so we can test it, see how consumers react, adapt it, do A/B test, do concept test, etc., etc. But we always ask consumer to use the product services and look how this fulfills a need that they have. We will do that by also do a big scale, more research kind of approach, where we ask them for the top tasks, what are they doing with our products, what kind of need is this fulfilling, and then evaluating how we score on that level, how they perceive our services, etc. And then another way that we want to do is by creating insights into the different departments. Of course, like I said, there are a lot of stories I can tell. I just picked out 3 during this scope, and I'm talking this quite high level. But we are looking at the different departments and say, okay, how can we create metrics? Can we create consumer stories, especially for that kind of organization, that kind of department? For instance, in the editorial team, we are building recommendation engines. We would never start doing things automatically, An editorial team is the core of our organization. That's where our products are built. This is a human creative process, so we need to keep them in charge. So they have a recommendation engine saying, okay, these kind of articles, it would be good if we can have them placed also on Facebook, or maybe you should put it out there in a newsletter, and then it's up to the editorial or to the publishing to decide whether they want to use that. For the personalization, it's the same. We just kind of use the editorial insights together with the algorithm to build the order of, for example, the newspaper content that comes into mind. The dashboarding on the editorial team has also evolved. The editorial teams used to be looking at, okay, where is our traffic coming from? Which kind of articles drive that traffic? Which kind of touch points? Is it more Facebook? Is it the newsletters, etc.? Then they started more asking more insights around the articles. Okay, it's page views, it's not enough. I think everybody knows that. We went to looking at attention time, know how much are they engaged with the different articles, what is the flow path throughout our website. And then recently, for the last 2 years, we have also been looking at conversions, not just the last conversions. We also start looking at the last 5 conversions, etc. The next step that we are going to take is, because editorial teams were also starting to look at who's reading the articles. They have objectives to attain more younger people, for instance, or to help retain existing customers. So they wanted to know whether are these new subscribers, are these people that have been subscribed very long, which kind of profile. And so just the information on the articles is not enough. It doesn't create a lot of insights. So we are adding actually now more consumer insights, saying, okay, how are people doing that are subscribed versus non-subscribed? And we are thinking of a way to put that into a dashboard, which still is readable. At the same time, if we do analysis on the article in content, we have seen that the information that we have on the articles is rather scarce. We have something about content, but we have not enough to create really in-depth insights for the editorial teams, as well as for the sales and marketing teams that are actually working on engagement, on activating people to read more. So we started what we call the customer and article DNA. So we are creating a DNA around each of our consumers, GDPR proof, of course, and around all of the articles. So for instance, the customer DNA, it's not just about aggregating the elements, but also creating a common view on our consumers, not just within one entity, but in all the entities in the different countries that media have, so we can talk the same kind of language when it comes to big data. We have a different legacy for everything that is offline data and subscriber information. But on the digital data, we really want to actually have a common way of looking at our consumer. We also want to make sure that the segmentation of the consumer brings value, not that we say, okay, let's create some loyals and then everybody kind of decides together what we think is a loyal consumer or a consumer with a relevant habit and then go test that habit. No, we're going to ask the data scientists to look into the data. We've already done that. And to say, okay, what's now a meaningful habit that is created? What is a meaningful way of regrouping our consumers? And then only when that analysis has been done and when we have proven the value of some kind of aggregate or combination of variables, then we will inject it into the day-to-day business decision taking. So we're talking about all kinds of data, included the survey kind of data when we talk about attitudes, etc. The same for the article DNA, then it's more about metadata. information on editorial content, and also doing that over all entities. So the Dutch speaking and English speaking and French speaking or even Portuguese speaking, when we talk about Luxembourg, we are trying to create a common way of tagging our articles. And also there we will see which kind of groupment, which kind of segments are meaningful. And we will take into account not just sentiment and content, but also the intent and also maybe the brand value to create also this consistent view on our content. It's about creating this common language, common taxonomy and definitions, but it's also creating impact by working with different working groups in different countries and see what is meaningful. And then if it's valuable, if we have created some added value, to copy it from one country to another and do it again. And when things are not valuable, it will become less a priority to test it in another country as well. With article DNA and consumer DNA, we have this very good basis to create valuable insights, also for sales and marketing, but also for the B2B market where they are selling audiences towards advertisers. We can actually give a lot more information on how to do that best, and we will also capture the feedback of the impact of different campaigns on our consumers. So we can learn and we can actually do a lot more consultative selling towards the B2B based on our consumer insights. And of course, also for the editorial teams, we can deliver them the insights they need to see which kind of content is read by which kind of consumers. And that might help to improve the personalization on the content side, but also the way we segment people to have more meaningful segmentations, to create personalized based really on the insights that we deliver. Have more, when we do ad hoc insights, to make them more meaningful, to say, okay, people are creating a habit, but some people have the habit of reading only in-depth articles. Other days scan some articles and then they read 1 or 2 in-depths per week. That might be different kind of readers. The article DNA will also help to improve the SEO, to improve what we will push towards consumers into the mobile notifications, for examples. And in the end, of course, the aim is to have higher retention, higher conversions. It will also make it possible to actually monitor some audiences, to say, okay, some people are responsible to create a more engagement into the younger segment. We can actually monitor those young peoples. And for advertising, it will also make it possible to have the contextual advertising, to make sure that advertisers are not against blacklisted content, for instance, disasters, etc. So that's very in short what I've been doing for the last 3 years and the plans for 2021 and further. Feel free to ask me any question you want.
So Tre, we do actually have a couple of questions and we have about 4 minutes for them. So the first one is it possible for smaller organizations to have tech stack, or is it only big ones that can afford it?
No, I think it's, we've started a project for Media House Belgium, which is a small country, so per definition, a small organization. And you can see, you can actually, it's also a language that that's not worldwide accessible. If you look in your country, you can find small companies very much specialized in NLP and tagging, etc. So we are looking at automated tags, working with those kind of companies. But we are also looking at working with the editorial teams to make sure that they add a tag. But that takes longer because you have to make sure there's a win in for them. And that doesn't really cost a lot. And creating the algorithm once you have the tags is not that time consuming.
The second
you just
question,
need a data scientist to do that. Yeah.
The second question is, for journalism, should it be driven by the readers or by the journalist's insight based on his experience, his or her experience?
Yes. So if you make it by the reader, then you could do it by an algorithm and saying, okay, which kind of articles are read by the consumer. But a newspaper also have a society function. We bring the news to the public. We think the people are have the right to be informed. Even if they don't like the message, they should be informed. So the editorial teams, it's in the nature to say, we know what the news is and we will bring it. And then there is the brand of the newspapers, because, okay, we bring it in that way. And that's kind of the way we bring content to the consumer. So that's one part that's very important. It's the role of a newspaper historically, and it's still very important. You can see that worldwide, that they take that role more serious now even than maybe 5 years ago. But on the other hand, you want to get some feedback. That's the new world. You get easily feedback. And that's what we're trying to build in. So we will have some personalization to just show them which kind of articles are read really by your consumer. But we will leave that decision always to the editorial teams as well, because otherwise you just get clickbait kind of articles. I hope that answers the questions.
It does, I think, yes. And we've got probably a minute or less to answer. See if you can do this in 40 seconds. What are the risks of data strategy failing? What are the common failures that people should be aware of? So perhaps the top 3 failures that you've seen.
I think in the beginning we tried to build a state-of-the-art Rolls-Royce, and we kept building. So I think the technology partners really need to know that we need to deliver also very fast. So sometimes you just have to do some things quick and dirty to create that great use case. A second thing is that you kind of decide doing something, you invest, and I think that goes not only for data. And then if it's not working, people kind of say, yeah, but I'm convinced it has to, and you just keep on developing. And on the other hand, you might stop too quickly as well. So I think we've done both in the past as well. And I think the biggest challenge we still have is it all worthwhile? You know, what would we be like if we didn't track any data at all and just do whatever we did without knowing? Because it costs a lot of, the investment is quite high. So you still need to question yourself, because if you do things on the data lake, it costs money. So you have to constantly repeat yourself and make the cost efficiency awareness into a data science team as well.
Okay. Well, we will have to leave
go on failures.
No, that's okay. We will have to leave it there. You've been listening to Ture Lancreet from Media House in Belgium. And if you want to get in touch with her, perhaps reach out to the organisers of the conference and they can put you in touch and put further questions to her. I hope that's okay, Ture, if that's all right with you.
Yes.
Fantastic. That's wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Forger, and thank you, Ms. Lancreet, for that wonderful session. I now request the audience to please go back to the timeline so that we can move on to the next session. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.